Book of Psalms, "Blessed is the one who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor follows in the way of sinners." Life has been called a way, because everything that has been created is on the way to its end. When people are on a sea voyage, they can sleep while they are being transported without any effort of their own to their port of call. The ship brings them closer to their goal, without their even knowing it. So we can be transported nearer to the end of our life without our noticing it, as time flows by unceasingly. Time passes while you are asleep. While you are awake, time passes, although you may not notice. All of us have a race to run towards our appointed end, so we are all on the way. This is how you should think of the way. You are a traveler in this life. Everything goes past you and is left behind. You notice a flower on the way, or some grass, or a stream, or something worth looking at. You enjoy it for a moment, then pass on. Maybe you come on stones, or rocks, or crags, or cliffs, or fences. Or perhaps you meet wild beasts, or reptiles, or thorn bushes, or some other obstacles. You suffer briefly, then escape. That is what life is like. Pleasures do not last, but pain is not permanent either. The way does not belong to you, nor is the present under your control. But as step succeeds step, enjoy each moment as it comes, and then continue on your way. Saint Basil the Great, on Ancient Faith Radio.
Orthodox music, lectures, prayers, and more on Ancient Faith Radio. Thanks for your support.
This is Ancient Faith Today with Father Tom Soroka, a weekly live call-in show addressing the issues of our day from a distinctly Orthodox perspective. You can join the conversation by calling in at 855-237-2346. That's 855-AF-RADIO. Father Tom is the priest at St. Nicholas Orthodox Church in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and welcomes guests from across the globe to discuss important topics of interest. Here's Father Tom.
Welcome to Ancient Faith Today. This is Father Tom Soroka, and I'm so glad that you're with us this evening. We'll be taking your calls in a bit at 1-855-AF-RADIO. That's 1-855-237-2346. John will be answering your calls, so please make sure to turn the show volume off before you come on air. You can also join us in the chat room, which is now open, by going to ancientfaith.com/live. Another way to connect with us is to go to facebook.com/ancientfaithtoday and place your question in the thread for tonight's show. You can also send us an email at aft@ancientfaith.com. And remember that our show is being live simulcast weekly on the AFR Facebook and YouTube pages. So let's get started. The renowned history of Orthodox mission work to spread the gospel throughout the world had unfortunately experienced a precipitous decline during the Ottoman oppression of the Church and during the time of the oppression of the Church of communism in Russia. From around the 14th century on, missionary efforts by both the Roman Catholic Church and the various Protestant denominations dominated areas that didn't have active Christian churches, as well as some areas that were historically Orthodox. Certainly there were some efforts by the Russian Church during this period, notably the mission to North America at the end of the 18th century. However, the fall of communism and the continued maturation of Orthodoxy in the West spurred a renewed interest in Orthodox mission work both in Western lands and in traditionally non-Orthodox areas. While Orthodox mission work is, in comparison with Catholicism and Protestantism, sadly a small part of the resources expended by Orthodox churches worldwide, there is a growing realization that mission work is at the core of our self-understanding as Orthodox Christians. And one of the hidden gems of Orthodox work is happening right now in the Central American country of Guatemala. And with that, we'd like to welcome our guest, Father John Chakos. Father John has been an active member of the board of the Orthodox Christian Mission Center for almost 35 years. After graduating from Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology in 1974, he was assigned to Holy Cross Greek Orthodox Church in Pittsburgh and then retired after being their pastor for 31 years. During his very active priesthood, he devoted much of his time to mission work both here and abroad, notably in Africa and Central America. His work lately has been entirely devoted to building up the church in Guatemala. And so we're very honored tonight to have Father John Chakos with us. Father John, welcome to Ancient Faith Today.
Thank you, Father Tom. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate that you're extending the call so that I could participate and join in with you with regard to the work that we're doing in Guatemala and southern Mexico.
I'm so glad because this is very exciting, and sometimes we don't have the type of advertisement about the tremendous work that you're doing. And if this news needs to get out, and you are certainly the man to do it. So before we actually get to your amazing work and all of the amazing work that's going on in Guatemala and southern Mexico, tell us about yourself and a little bit about your background, your family. You know, how did you come to serve the church? And tell us a little bit about all of that so our listeners can get to know you.
Thank you, Father Tom. My involvement with the church really began as a result of the time that I spent in the Peace Corps. I was in the Peace Corps beginning in 1966, and I served there with my wife in the slums of Rio de Janeiro for almost 2.5 years, during which time I was exposed to a great deal of poverty and suffering, and it really pricked my conscience. And I went through a crisis of faith as a result of that experience and came back to the United States questioning my own faith.
Oh, wow.
But after some time of struggle, I received the kind of what I would believe to be my calling, you know, as a member of the choir in our local parish, and
Sure.
I applied to the seminary after being encouraged to do so by our bishop, and from that point on, you know, I just began following the places that the church would send me, and I ended up in the beginning going to the Chicago land area for about 6 years. And then in 1980, I was assigned to my home parish, the Holy Cross in Pittsburgh. And it was there that my wife and I began our ministry together. And I served there until I retired in 2011. Upon my retirement...
So I apologize. Let me interrupt you just for 1 second. I apologize. I didn't know that is your home parish? You grew up in that parish?
I grew up there. When the parish opened up, I was in the Sunday school when they first opened it in 1954. Yeah.
That is amazing. Good. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Go ahead. Yeah, please.
No problem. So anyway, we had always maintained for the last 2 decades, my wife and I maintained a relationship with Guatemala through the orphanage in Guatemala City, which has the abbess Mother Inez and her group of nuns. And during a visit in 1999, my wife and I met a young girl, 12 years old. And after prayer and discussion with my wife, we decided to adopt her. And when she was 12, we brought her to Pittsburgh the following year. And she's growing up here with us now. She's married and has a little boy that we babysit from time to time. And that was my initial exposure. So for the first 10 years, from 99 on, most of our involvement was with the orphanage. We would take groups down every year from our parish to work with the orphans, taking clothing, and then working with the sisters in order to supplement their work with the orphans. And then in the year 2009, two clergymen approached me while I was at the orphanage, and they were asking me if they could be received into the Orthodox Church. They were part of a non-canonical kind of Western Rite group, which was more or less a mixture of Catholicism and a touch of Orthodoxy. They were very interested in, having that legitimacy of coming into the canonical church. So myself, Father David Rucker, former OCMC missionary, and Father Antonio Perdomo, who has a parish in Far, Texas. The three of us went down and we did a tour of the communities that this church group had, and we found it to be quite interesting and really quite extensive. And that's how it all began. And then contacts were made with the hierarchs in the United States. And finally, Father Andres Giron joined himself to the Orthodox Church under the Ecumenical Patriarchate. So since that time, so since that time, we've been working with them. We ordained their clergy, reordained them because they had their own kind of an ordination, but we ordained them. And then we began visiting their communities. We began catechetical programs. OCMC, the Orthodox Christian Mission Center, has been supporting this work very extensively. We've had a number of missionaries stationed there and currently stationed there as well. Most of them are graduates of seminaries. Father Juvenal Repas,
right?
Also Deacon Thomas Manuel and his wife Elizabeth, and now their little recently born son Vasily, and Jennifer Rice have been there for about 3 years as well, and myself and my wife. So and Jesse, and of course Jesse Branda, who's had the longest tenure there in terms of full-time mission work in Guatemala. He's now married to a Guatemalan woman who is attending medical school, and she is being supported through our OCMC as well. So this gives you kind of a little bit of an overview of what we've been doing and different aspects of our mission. Yeah.
That's incredible. And I want to hear a little bit more about this group that came in and a little bit more about the work that is actually done out on the ground. But right now, Father John, we want to go to the phones. We have a caller.
Sure.
We have Holly from Pennsylvania. Holly, welcome to Ancient Faith Today. You're on the air with Father John Chakos.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me, Father Tom.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good to be here.
What?
Yes, I go to a church in Berwick, Pennsylvania, an Orthodox church. I'm actually a catechumen.
Oh, great.
I was brought to the faith by one of my clients who owns a church supply store, and specifically Orthodox icons and stuff like that. And he had seen me fail with the Roman Catholicism, and then I tried Protestantism when I moved to Pennsylvania. And he goes, "Hey, why don't you talk to my priest friend?" So I was like, "Okay." So I did, and I was like, "I got to check this out." I started going, and the first day I knew it was like the truth. But as soon as I walked into the sanctuary, it was pretty incredible. But
that is amazing.
Anyways, I'm so blessed.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. But my comment, and this is for both you and Father John. Father John, thank you for your mission work. It's priceless.
Thank you.
And I really appreciate it because now that I'm transforming, I feel like there's not enough Orthodox mission work. I don't see it. I see a lot of Protestantism, and that could be any person interpreting the Bible any way they feel like and starting a religion, basically. And there's a strong presence of Protestant missionaries and Roman Catholic missionaries, specifically the Novus Ordo Roman Catholic. But I feel like we need a stronger missionary presence. So that's all. I mean, I'm 39 years old, and I wish I had found this faith a long time ago.
You know, Holly, we could go on. Father John and I could go on about this for hours, because, you know, unfortunately, we're kind of we're known as the best kept secret in America. So, Father John, I know that, you know, you've done a lot of overseas missions, but talk a little bit about what Holly is saying, that, you know, maybe we don't have enough of a missionary presence here in the U.S. either.
Well, we're trying really hard through the Orthodox Christian Mission Center to recruit, train, and send missionaries all over the world, with a special emphasis on areas where Christ has not been preached. So we are working, for example, in Albania. There's one example in Mongolia, Korea, other parts of the world, like even Sweden, because it's become a more of a less post-Christian society. So there is an active effort being made through the Mission Center to recruit, train, and send missionaries to places where either Christianity is on the wane, or places where the name of Christ has never been heard. So it is happening, but it's a slow and steady process. You know, leaving your homeland, leaving America, a land of many comforts and few struggles, to go to a land of many struggles and few comforts. It's not that easy to find people that are willing to do that, but we're trying as best as we can. And that's our goal. You know, we are encouraging people to consider that. We have a number of programs available, you know, at different levels. We have short-term mission teams. We have teams also for people that are willing to go for a few months or a year or 2 years. Or finally, for those who would like to make a career out of mission work. And we do have some career missionaries serving throughout the church now. But that's kind of what our focus has been, and we're working at it as best as we can. We represent all the bishops in the United States. We are under the tutelage or the guidance of the Assembly of Bishops. And, you know, we report to them, and we work hand in hand with them so that we can do this outreach.
Holly, let me add just to what Father John is saying there in terms of this particular country. So there is not necessarily one coordinated effort among all the churches like there is for what's called the Orthodox Christians Mission Center, which is overseas missions. But each one of the jurisdictions does have a missions and evangelism ministry of some type. So, for instance, the Greek Orthodox Church has a missions and evangelism a ministry and a conference every year. The Orthodox Church in America has a department of missions and evangelism. The Antiochian Archdiocese has also a very active Department of Missions and Evangelism, and what their job is to reach out to people in this country and start missions in various areas where, you know, maybe there's not so many Orthodox Christians. So that would primarily be, for instance, down south in the United States, out west, in the far Midwest, central U.S., because in places like Pittsburgh and in eastern PA and central PA where you're at, there are, you know, quite a few Orthodox parishes, but they may not be everywhere. But this is probably, Pennsylvania is probably one of the highest concentrations of Orthodox Christians in America in this particular area. So, but you are absolutely right. We have to do a better job of it. Any other comments, Holly?
Yeah, so when I'm chrismated, I'll just join your mission, and we'll just do it. Okay? I'll just dedicate my life.
Very good.
I'll be a mission. It's on the record, all right?
Keep your enthusiasm. God bless you, Holly. All right, very good. 1-855. Thank you. 1-855 AF Radio. That's 1-855-237-2346. Father John, you went into a little bit about how Orthodoxy came to Guatemala. I want to unpack that a little bit, because you talked about this particular group that was kind of a mixture of Orthodoxy and Western Rite. That's Father Giron's group. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Was that the only?
Yeah.
Was that the genesis of it? Or did we send missionaries down there first?
No, we didn't have any missionaries prior to that. Most of the missionary work that had occurred in Guatemala was happening with the Roman Catholic Church initially as the colonizers of Guatemala over some 500 years. And more lately, in the late 1800s, the country was opened up to Protestant missionaries through the then president, who himself was Protestant, and he had shut down many of the Catholic churches and opened the doors up for Protestant missionaries. So for a time, the Protestant church, some of the mainline denominations were given the okay to come in, and that process began. And today, Guatemala is no longer a Catholic country. Less than half of the people have some Catholic roots, but the majority of the Guatemalans now are spread out among many different groups: the Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, Mormons, all kinds of Protestant sects. So it's kind of spread out, and they're proliferating at a very rapid pace throughout the country. So in
Father
that
John,
mix
why would you say that's the case? Why would you say that Roman Catholicism is diminishing in Central America and in Guatemala, and that these other groups are starting to flourish? Is it because they are so aggressive, or is there something about the Roman Catholic presence in Central America that's maybe causing itself to diminish?
Well, that's a very good question. There was a study done by a Pew report was done a few years ago on that very issue. And they did a study throughout all of Central and Latin America to try to come to some understanding about the causes for the decline of Roman Catholicism. Because, as early as recent as 1970, 90% of Latin America was Roman Catholic.
Wow.
But now at the present time, you're looking at in the 60s, the 60% throughout the whole region of Latin America. Guatemala, because the missionaries started even earlier, is less so, as I mentioned earlier. But the main reasons are basically two reasons. Number one, the people that have been drawn into the other groups are drawn with the focus on Christ, that they are told to commit themselves to Christ. So it's a very clear and a very simple message. And it's very appealing to people that are looking for a strong focus in their faith. That's number one. And then the second aspect of it that has been studied and commented on by this Pew report is the fact that in these other groups, there is a lot of ministering to the individual. So they have a lot of focus on the person in the group. So it's when you're a member of a big church, and the clergy are just not able to get around everybody, because Guatemala is a very difficult country to reach out to, because you have people living in the most unlikely places. Some of these villages don't even appear on a map. And this is kind of where the Orthodox Church is today. We're not in any city at all. We have no presence other than Guatemala City, with the monastery that's there and an Antiochian parish in Guatemala City. But our work with the church group that I'm helping with is primarily, almost exclusively, in the rural areas. So we have about 160 communities that we visit, all throughout these areas, very remote areas. Some of them you have to walk to get to once you get to a certain point with your car. And you might have to take a donkey or a horse or just by foot in order to get to where the people are. And when you arrive to the places where the communities are located, you find, you're thinking, well, who's going to be there? What's going to happen? And you come and you find hundreds of people waiting. They want baptisms. They want marriages. They want prayers.
It's amazing.
They're all waiting. So with only a few clergy who are circuit riding, we are trying to reach out to all of these communities. We have people in the tens of thousands that have come into the Orthodox Church. Now, the impetus behind most of this movement was through the charismatic movement initially. So they were drawn into kind of this new kind of Christianity through the charismatic movement, which, as you probably know, Father Tom, started in Pittsburgh in 1967 at Duquesne University.
Yeah, Duquesne was the Catholic charismatic movement, right?
And then from there, it spread out, and little by little, it spread into Central and South America. So that group was drawn into that. So they were wanting to be able to clap their hands during the services. They wanted to sing out loud. So the enthusiasm didn't initially blend very well with Catholicism at that time. So in many of these communities, since they didn't very often see a priest, and many times the priests were not Guatemalans, they were from foreign countries and did not understand the culture very well. They were kind of like having to draw on their own resources in order to try to keep the community together with a focus on Christ. So they would have their prayer meetings, they would sing together, but they still wanted sacraments. So they approached Father Giron, for example, in one village that I have in my mind, in 1996, August the 9th, St. Herman's feast day, by the way, August the 9th, 1996. They found Father Giron, who had been a Roman Catholic priest, but he was expelled from the Catholic Church because of his political activities on behalf of the Mayan people, who were persecuted fiercely during the Civil War by the military dictatorship. And there were 200,000 or so Mayan people that were slaughtered during the Civil War by the military. They would go into villages. Let me stop you there. Sure.
Because I read something about that, so help me understand that. Is it true that the Orthodox movement in Guatemala is largely from sort of a Mayan, people of a Mayan background?
It's exclusively Mayan, with a couple of exceptions. So these people on their own, in their own communities, were drawn to a form of religion that was very demanding. You know, they were finding within the Catholic Church a number of issues that they weren't able to deal with. One of which was, shall we say, there was a kind of a alienation that they felt toward the Catholic Church because they were not being received because of their enthusiastic expression of their faith. So they were told that they were, in one instance, they were told they were praying too much. And
wow.
And so they became disenchanted, and they tried to talk to their priests whenever they would come, which was very rare because being spread out as they were, they didn't often have exposure. So along came Father Giron, and he said, look, he said, the sacraments are God's, and they belong to the people, like, you know, you. And so he came, and the first day that he went and visited the parish that had sought him out, he baptized 200 people, he married 100 couples, and as soon as he finished the services in the soccer field, he was arrested. He was arrested and told never, ever to come back again. So that was the start of his ministry.
Was he Roman Catholic, or was he sort of his own group at that point?
He had already been expelled by the Catholic Church.
Ah.
Yeah. He had found orthodoxy when he was in exile in Rome, because he was forced to go in exile because a number of assassination attempts were made against him. His father was assassinated. And there were 4 different attempts made on his life, one of which was made during the liturgy, and he was shot in the neck, but he survived. And so out of necessity, he had to kind of leave the country for a while. And it was while he was in Rome that he discovered the Orthodox Church. And he came back, and he began to tell the people, look, we should become Orthodox. And one village after another followed along. And we were talking a little bit about the structure in a village is very interesting, because every village has its elders, the leaders of the community, and they are followed with a great deal of respect. The structure is very similar to the kind of the Orthodox kind of village life as it might have been many years ago. So the elders, they're called in Spanish los ancianos, or the elders, will make decisions on behalf of the whole community. And they'll say, okay, let's bring our community into the Orthodox Church. And so under their guidance, they come forward and they establish a relationship with the church, and we let them know what the requirements are and what they have to do. And if they're willing to accept the structure of our church and the way things are done, we will work with them, and we begin to visit their communities and start baptizing them and hearing their confessions and bringing them into the church that way. So this movement has been going on very actively since March the 10th, 2010 was the beginning of the active outreach to the people in the Mayan communities. So we have now tens of thousands that have embraced the faith, and we're working with them. We have a small seminary, St. Andrew. We built a medical clinic in one of the villages near the border with Mexico, where we've been sending mission teams, doctors, nurses, people with vision care and so forth. And we have a regular presence in the villages with medical outreach. My wife, Presbytera Alexandra, started a ministry of sewing Orthodox vestments, liturgical adornments, altar cloths.
Father John, are you there? I think we lost Father John. Yeah, let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and take a break, and we'll get Father John back on the line. 1-855-AF-RADIO. That's 1-855-237-2346. We are talking about the amazing work of Orthodox mission work in Guatemala. Come right back. We'll be right back.
Father Tom will be back in a moment. In the meantime, the lines are open at 855-237-2346. Don't go away.
Are you struggling in your walk with Christ? Do you want to rediscover your reason for living, the person you were created to be? Renewing You, a priest, a psychologist, and a plan, gives you the keys to unlock areas of your life that hold you back from fully experiencing the renewal and transformation God has in mind for you. Co-authored by a priest and a psychologist, Renewing You combines principles of spiritual growth with psychological tools to help you become your best self, fully connected with God's purpose for you. Reverend Dr. Nicholas Lowe is a priest, and Dr. Roxanne Lowe is a clinical psychologist. In their new book and in their ministry, the Lowes are a marriage of two different worlds and fields of study. Their work unites the seemingly opposing fields of faith and psychology to support the kind of inward reflection that leads to lasting outward transformation. Find out more and pre-order your copy, Renewing You, a priest, a psychologist, and a plan. Do it now at store.ancientfaith.com. That's store.ancientfaith.com.
We're back with Ancient Faith Today and Father Tom Soroka. Give us a call at 855-237-2346. Here once again is Father Tom.
Welcome back to Ancient Faith Today. We're having the fascinating story about mission work in Guatemala. Father John, are you back with us?
Yeah.
All right. Very, very good. So, Father John, there was a question that came up. There's a couple questions that came up in the chat room. We're going to talk a little bit about any kind of charitable work that you might have to do in addition to your missionary work there. But I want to read a question that came in from Albert. And he says, Archbishop Anastasios of Albania helped revive the Orthodox Church in Albania by focusing on preaching the gospel to the native Albanian population. The principles he followed included 1. Ordaining local priests, 2. Training local priests at local seminaries rather than sending them abroad, and 3. Praying in the vernacular. His question are these or similar principles at the center of the mission in Guatemala?
Okay, with regard to the ordination of the clergy, the first thing that we did upon receiving the members of this group was to ordain all of their clergy. So they were all immediately ordained and received into the church, the first thing that we did. We also have established the St. Andres Seminary, where we are teaching young men the Orthodox Church, and they're part of they go around with the priests and they visit different communities. And through the practical involvement in the life of the local parishes, they're learning about how to be pastors and how to conduct the services. And they help a lot whenever we go there. They're very, they're very committed. And then, of course, they pray mainly in Spanish whenever we are there. But when we're not there, in many of the communities, they pray in their local dialect. There are 23 different dialects of the Mayan language in Guatemala.
Oh, my.
So in many of our villages, when we go, we can't speak their dialect, so we have to conduct the service in Spanish. Usually, most people will understand Spanish, but in some of the villages that were, especially for the women and the young children, they only speak the local dialect, so sometimes we have to translate from the Spanish into the local dialect so that they will also know what's going on. But we have to use Spanish as the common language. So we do follow those principles. And then the outreach, I mentioned our medical clinic is touching thousands of people. We have been operating this clinic since 2015, and we bring medicines, donated medicines. We buy medicines in Mexico. We have doctors, nurses. We have interns from Guatemalan universities that serve in our clinic, and they are able to treat the people. And we are training right now a young woman, Jesse Brandau's wife, Juanita, is in medical school. She's in her 4th year, and she will be the doctor for the clinic whenever she graduates in about 3 to 4 years. And then we have another young lady who is being trained as a nurse, and she will also assist in the clinic as well. And we are currently recruiting an administrator for the clinic through OCMC, so that person can help run the clinic, make the visitations from the medical teams. We take a lot of things down to help out clothing. We have clothing drives. We try to do different things in order to meet the needs of the local people. As far as one of the things with regard to the worship, I think it's important, since the caller had made reference to that, we also allow for, in the services, for a certain amount of excitement and animation. So they get very excited. The Guatemalans are very excited when they pray. They don't pray the way the Orthodox do here in the United States.
Right.
They're very, very animated, and they have a very vibrant faith. So unlike Albania, for example, where we had to renew the faith, the opposite occurred in Guatemala. They already had the faith in Christ. And our job was to orient the enthusiasm into finding an expression of that in the cultural way of Guatemala into the Orthodox Church. So we allow for, clapping of hands. Sometimes when I'm giving a sermon, it's not unusual for the people to start clapping.
I love it.
And yelling, the holy fire, the story about the holy fire.
I love it. Yeah.
And they got so excited, they would jump out of their seats and they were cheering when they heard about the holy fire.
I love it. I love it.
So
That's
there's
wonderful.
an example, and but they haven't been very resistant to, we've reintroduced the icons, which they never had before. And we talked a lot about that, and they're learning how to paint icons. They're learning how to chant. but we respect their musical tradition as well. We don't poo-poo it. So, for example, during the distribution of the Eucharist, you'll find them singing some of their own music, and we don't make an issue out of that. We feel that's part of their culture, so we accept that, and we're not trying to impose upon them purely Greek or Russian or Arab form of worship. We're allowing them to be who they are, and the liturgy is a really very dramatic experience in Guatemala.
That's amazing.
Once you start, blessed is the kingdom, and you hear the first amen, and whenever you say, in peace, let us pray to the Lord, and you hear like a wave of energy coming over you, Señor, ten piedad. It's like a wave comes over you. Everybody sings.
Incredible.
It's it's not a beautiful choir, Father Tom, like the ones that you've led, but it has
its own beauty.
It has its own beauty, and it's just kind of overwhelming. So many of our missionaries who've experienced that for the first time can't get over the power of the liturgy whenever these people are praying. They reach deep inside of themselves, and they find at another level something very deep, and it comes out from the very bottom of their soul, the soles of their feet, and it comes through their heart, and they express themselves in this very powerful way when they pray. And the church is open during the day. Churches are open during the day. People walk in and out all day, and they're praying and praying and praying out loud in a kind of a chant form. Their prayers are very, very dramatic and very heartfelt. And I just want to share with you one experience that I had in one remote village that I visited. It was called the Village of San Miguel. It was up in the mountains of an area known as called Totonicapan. And I went with Father Andres to visit them. It was my first visit, my first experience in this kind of a remote area. This was back in 2012. So we're going through the jungle area, dirt roads, it was very, very primitive area. And we get to this village and we find the people come out and they meet us. But during the course of the interaction with the people, I noticed that the women, they weren't talking to me. They were kind of like off to the side. And whenever it was time for us to eat, the women would prepare the food in one building, and then the men would go and get it, and they would serve it to us. And I was thinking, I guess maybe in their culture, the women are not supposed to talk to strange men. I didn't know.
Right.
So it came time for us to hear some confessions. And Father Andres went into one of the houses, and people lined up, and I saw that the line was going to really be long, and we're going to be there for a long time. So I said, Father Andres, do you mind if I join you and I can help you out with the confessions? He said, please, please. So they put me in another house, and I'm thinking, well, who's going to come? The women don't talk, they won't talk to me. But you know what happened? The women all lined up in my line where I was, and they came in one by one. And I was thinking, well, what are they going to say? How are they going to react? Are they going to, they're going to confess, or do they know what confession is? And then they began opening up, and the cataracts of tears began to flow. And they opened up their hearts, and I was totally blown away, totally overwhelmed. I said, wow, these people know what it is to confess. I mean, they're opening up their entire hearts. And I was just so overwhelmed by it. And I thought, well, I guess they do talk to men after all. And then after we broke the ice later on, they were very open with me after that point. But I was just so impressed and surprised.
That's incredible
to see how open
that is,
and how deep their repentance was. Yeah,
they are a tremendous example of faith. Father John, thanks for sharing that. We have a couple of calls waiting online, so we wanted to go first to Maria. Maria, you're on the line with Father John Chakos. Welcome to Ancient Faith Today.
Hello, Father John. It's Maria Corey. Christina goes to the Holy Land. Maria Corey.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Maria. Yes, it's so nice to hear your voice.
Yeah,
God bless you. I hope you're well.
Listening to you. I'm in Boston. I'm on a Corona stop for Boston. May God protect you. Keep
you're
you
not
safe.
In Tybee.
No. What a magnificent country you're in, Father John. And please, I beg you to make Christina Goes to the Holy Land in the Mayan language so that people can
that would be great. Yes.
walk the footsteps of Christ, because now we know with this corona stop, people can't travel, and we pray for peace and stability so people would come to the Holy Land. But I know that people, in poverty situations can't afford such trips, but maybe you can get the government to bring them, just like I think the Indians do. Please, I wish you all of God's blessings, and it's
Thank you, Maria. I appreciate so much your kind
you.
words, and God bless your ministry as well.
Thank you.
Excellent. Very, very good. Thank you, Maria. Next, we have Lisa from Boston. Lisa, you're on with Father John Chakos. Welcome to Ancient Faith Today.
Oh, thank you so much. Hi, Father John. I just wanted to call to see how you were. How are you?
Thank God I'm well. Thank God.
I just wanted to ask a quick question. I've had some background in ministry. I haven't been on mission trips per se, but I know that I have had the experience of talking to Jesse when he visited. Hellenic College, Holy Cross. My husband is a seminary student there right now, and I wanted to call and ask if there are any projects or small projects or anything like that going on in Guatemala now, and if it's so, if you could just maybe speak about those, if there is anything.
Yes. Well, we've done a number of things.
I was wondering about the possible financial support that you might need or require.
You can support us through the OCMC, and also we do have a number of projects that we're working on right now. Besides the medical clinic, which we've been working with for the last 5 years, Jesse Brandow oversees the publication of what is called the Calendario Ortodoxo, where we have the readings of the day, of each day, the lives of the saints, the Apolitikia and Kondakia for the particular saints who are being celebrated at that time. We also have an occasional teaching about some of the major feasts, and we publish that every 3 months in Spanish, and we distribute it to the catechists so that when they go back to their villages, they will be able to teach the Orthodox faith using the calendario and the lives of the saints. So that's one of the big projects that Jesse has been involved with the help from the seminarians as well. I mentioned Presbytero with the vestments. If you want to encourage people, they need to buy some Orthodox vestments. We have the seamstresses are trained. We also have been doing a lot of work with parish visitations with the clergy, so that training them how to do the Orthodox services is a big part of what I'm involved with. Now, I'm the teacher for the liturgics, so when I go to the villages, I have to work with the local people as to how the services are conducted. We also do a lot of work with the choir training. Father Tom, you'll probably like this. We have a program to train choirs as well, to lead the singing in the villages whenever the liturgy is celebrated, and this is going really well. And we actually had a music team came down with OCMC, and they did a week-long teaching of Orthodox hymnology. Various graduates and choir directors from Holy Cross, from St. Vladimir's, St. Tikhon's came down, and they did an outreach. So keep that in mind, Father Tom, if you ever want to come down.
Absolutely.
And so that was successful. That was really great. They left a great inheritance there. Presbytera Roseanne Rucker also spent some time there, and she was working with the choir and did an outstanding job together with her husband, Father David. And so that's been a big part of our outreach, is teaching church music to the Mayan people.
Wow, that's so exciting. I didn't even know that was happening. I love music, and I know that it's a really valuable thing, basically in the ministry. It really softens the heart of the people, and I appreciate all that you guys are doing. And I don't want to monopolize your time, but I will maybe look into a few of those things. So I appreciate the information.
Yeah, if
Thank
you want,
for calling, Lisa.
I have a blog It goes like this: thewordfromguatemala.com. If you check out that blog, thewordfromguatemala.com, I have a lot of articles about the work that we've done and a couple of professionally done videos about the work of the clinic in the villages.
Oh, okay. I will check that out. Thank you so much, Father John.
Sure. You're welcome. God bless you.
Excellent. Thewordfromguatemala.com. Check that out.
Yeah.
And of course, everyone should be supporting OCMC and their excellent work. Thank you so much for that. Father
That's
John,
right.
I want to,
OCMC is,
yeah, I want to talk a little bit about the economic condition in Guatemala, because obviously, you know, from what I read on the internet and so forth, having never been there, but it sounds like more than half of Guatemala lives under the poverty level. And so you're going out to these remote villages. Clearly there's no Holiday Inn or, you know, wherever you're going there.
Right.
And what are the conditions that you are going into when you're going out to these villages? If you're able to describe that, maybe just describe for us, what is a typical day like when you go to work there and your wife goes to serve in these villages in Guatemala? What is that like? Tell us what it feels like and what kind of things you do.
Okay, well, just to give you an example, you know, I had to go to a village to fill in for one of the Guatemalan priests who was unable to go. And over the course of a weekend, I did 50 baptisms, 20 weddings, and many, many confessions, plus the divine liturgies.
Amazing.
That was a typical weekend for a priest.
Unbelievable.
And they wait. And and the Guatemalans that we work with living in the rural areas, the Mayan people, have very big families. You know, we're not talking about like in the U.S. 2 or 1.5 children, like we always say, but it's like usually anywhere from 5 to 12, 13, 14 children, because the women get married very, very young. You could be a bride when you're 15 or 16, and then they just start having children. And you know, part of it is that, you know, obviously that only perpetuates the cycle of poverty, because then, you know, the education levels are very low, and in some instances non-existent, and the children are recruited in order to do the work in the community, because they're all rural and they have to cultivate their little tract of land that they have, many side of a mountain, and you know, just to kind of keep body and soul together, they live in very humble dwellings. You know, usually kind of like shanty-like homes. So on occasion, you'll find some built with blocks, because they have a relative in the United States that sent them money so they could afford to buy some bricks and put that together. They cook on wood-burning stoves. You know, they have like a barbecue type pit thing, and then they have a metal sheet over it, and they cook their beans there and their rice and other things like that. And you know, many times there is no plumbing. You know, you have to go to the latrine area, and it's usually off a little out of the village a little bit. They put it in the most inconvenient place. So when you go to one of these places, you have to be prepared to kind of rough it a little bit. So we sleep wherever we can. We sleep on the floors of the churches, or they might have a place in a house for us to lay down on, and whatever it might be, we just do what we have to do while we're there. And that's kind of what life is in the village. And it's very simple. A lot of mules, a lot of donkeys, a lot of horses. You know, the farming is, you know, not with tractors or anything like that. It's all done by hand. And they grow a lot of corn. They make a lot of tortillas. That's kind of the mainstay. It's sort of like for us, like bread is what bread is to us. The tortilla is for them. So there's not that much meat in their diet, very little. So when we talk to them about fasting in the Orthodox Church, it's kind of funny, because, you know, their whole life is fasting. And
Yeah,
here we come
right.
in and tell them, well, you have to fast on Wednesdays and Fridays. Well, they're fasting every day of the week,
Right. They would love to have some meat or cheese, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, cheese. They don't have cheese in their diet, and but the health is very deplorable. The health situation is very deplorable. There's a lot of diabetes among the Mayan people. 25-30% people suffer diabetes. There's a lot of asthma because of the smoke from the wood burning stoves. There's a lot of issues with blood pressure. They don't live as long, as in other parts of the world because the life expectancy is not as long. The healthcare system is horrible. Other than a few national hospitals, usually very far away from where the people live, they have to rely on their own natural remedies whenever someone gets sick. They can't afford medicine and they can't really afford to go to doctors. It's very expensive. When you go to see a doctor in Guatemala, the first thing that he asks you when you walk in the door, the consultation will cost you such and such amount of money. So you have to give the money up front. And then after you see the doctor, if there's testing that is needed, you have to pay for the tests up front.
Pay for that.
And if you need medicine, if you're prescribed medicine, then you have to go buy the medicine, and it's not cheap. Here, those of us that have insurance programs, we go to the drugstore, we show them our insurance card. Most of the time, we don't pay anything or very little if we have to pay. But in Guatemala, if you don't have the money, you don't get the medicine. That's just the way it is. It's a very different.
So it sounds like
so if you get sick there, yeah.
When you go into the village, obviously you're providing the liturgical services and the sacraments and confession and so forth. But it sounds like from a sustenance standpoint, they have their diet, they're able to feed themselves, but you all are also trying in some way to provide clothing and medical care on a kind of a rudimentary basis, right?
That's right. Now, our clinic is very well equipped. We have a lot of apparatuses down. We can do a lot of more sophisticated things at the clinic itself. And whenever the medical teams from the United States come down, we've had teams from Pittsburgh and also from OCMC. When the teams come down, we get the word out to the area, to all of our villages, and we tell people, look, such and such a day or during this time, you can have you can come and see a doctor or a nurse, and we have medicine to give them.
That's great. That's amazing. What's the biggest challenge, if of all the challenges that you're facing down there, what would you say is the biggest challenge in terms of mission work in Guatemala?
The biggest challenge for us right now is recruiting priests, because we're dealing with a population of people that have a very low level of education. So in order for them to qualify for theological training, they have to know how to read, they have to know how to write, they have to have some kind of background, academically, in order for us to really work with them. It's very difficult. We're wonderful people, very pious, very Christ-centered, but it's the issue of the training. And so that's kind of where we're struggling. We have, our seminarians are very young men, and also culturally in Guatemala, it was unheard of for a priest to be married. They're not used to seeing someone like me with a wife. So that's like an innovation. And in the beginning, when the church first began to develop back in the earlier years, when it was the independent Orthodox group, they really had a hard time with the concept of married clergy. But now we're explaining to them, this is really a good thing. There's nothing wrong with it. Your wife will help you, will help in the mission. So little by little, we're breaking them into that idea. But the men, because they get married young, they have big families, it's very difficult for them just to kind of step out of the family and just be trained while all these kids and the wife and the family needs to be taken care of. So that's probably our biggest challenge, the recruitment of clergy.
And in terms of the transition, now you said it's been 10 years and you've done such incredible work in these 10 years, all of you down there. How has the transition gone from their roots in kind of like, I guess it was sort of a traditional Roman Catholic liturgy, but they had this kind of charismatic elements or the highly spiritual elements also to Orthodoxy. Right. You said that you have incorporated, some of their cultural sensitivities and songs, and that's great. But what about the transition just from like Latin liturgy to Orthodox liturgy? Has that been difficult for them?
Not too difficult. I think our liturgy is a little longer than the what they had perhaps been exposed to before. But you have to remember that they didn't have like a regular exposure to the Mass. It wasn't because they were living in such remote areas, and the dislocations caused by the Civil War were so extensive that many of them fled across the border into Mexico. And by the way, we have quite a few communities in southern Mexico that are a part of this group as well. So when we visit, we cross the border, we go to these other villages as well, and they're all kind of people with Mayan origin, so it's kind of like a somewhat of a homogeneous group in the sense that they all come from the Mayan, origins, and so they were very open to us. They've been very open and receptive. In the beginning, we had a little trouble with the icons because of the influence of the charismatic movement, where they were told that the statues are like idols, and we explained to them, well, that's not the theology of the icons. So we passed out icons, we explained the theology of the icons, and they've been very receptive to that now of late, and they're always looking forward to having icons for their homes.
Excellent. Father John, I have one last question. Thank you so much for all of your information tonight, all of your work. It's so inspiring. This is, it's just been an amazing program. So you had mentioned that you've been down there for about 10 years, and this was kind of a unique situation. You brought in a group that was seeking orthodoxy, and this kind of flourished, and this movement flourished. What about the spreading of that missionary work? I know that you have your hands full just with the work, to help these people that desire orthodoxy. What about spreading out? Is there any vision or possibility that orthodoxy would spread throughout Central America or into South America, or more kind of missionary work up through Mexico? What does that look like? Are there any plans for that? Are they actually themselves, maybe these people, trying to spread the word about orthodoxy?
Okay, under the guidance of Archbishop Athenagoras of Mexico, who is the hierarch for this group, we have a plan in place that we're implementing now to start a mission institute that will train the local people to go out from their villages and to go to other places where they can actually reach out to other communities or other clusters of people that are interested in coming into the Orthodox Church. So we already have a plan in place that we're beginning to implement now. Jesse Brandow has been tasked by His Eminence Archbishop Athenagoras to carry out this plan and to create a kind of like an institute for missions and evangelism, and he will be in charge of that. And he will be going, he'll be training people to do this kind of work. And we're gonna, by the way, we teach our young men also to do outreach because we teach. I'm teaching seminary classes by Skype, since I can't be in Guatemala right now because of the pandemic. And some of our other professors and teachers are all doing the same thing, because I had to leave Guatemala at the end of March because of the pandemic. I had to get out. My wife and I barely made it either. We had to sneak out from under a chain,
thank God,
which was blocked off the border. So,
oh my goodness.
But there is a plan in place, and we're developing it, and we hope pretty soon to be able to start following through with the institute. But this is really the inspiration and the desire of the Archbishop to be able to reach out beyond just the local communities in which the people live.
Amazing. Father John Chakos, you are such a hero to so many of us and all of the work that you're doing and all of the people that are working in the Guatemalan mission. God bless you. Again, tell us one more time where they can read about your work, your blog, and also how they can support OCMC.
The blog is thewordfromguatemala.com. If you put that into your computer, you can put that in. It'll come up right away. And then there's quite a few articles and some videos that we've done. And then you can just go directly to OCMC. If you want to make a donation for the work of the mission in Guatemala, just put a little note in your in the memo that's to support the missionary work.
Awesome. Very, very good. Thank you so much, Father John. Appreciate you very, very much. May God continue to bless and expand your work in Guatemala. Thank you so much. Before I share a few final thoughts, I want to thank again Father John Chakos for joining us tonight. Also, thanks to John Maddox for engineering the program. Everybody in the chat room, thank you very much. For those who called in, for those who are listening, and for those who will listen by podcast. Here are a few final thoughts before we close tonight. The great missionary champion, Archbishop Anastasios of Albania, explains, quote, "The question of the motive of mission can be studied from several angles: the love of God and man, obedience to the great command of the Lord, desire for the salvation of souls, even longing for God's glory. Surely all these are serious motives. However, we think that the real motive of mission for both the individual and the church is something much deeper. It is not simply obedience, duty, or altruism. It is, in fact, an inner necessity. Necessity is laid upon me, said St. Paul. Woe to me if I do not preach the gospel. All other motives are aspects of this need. They are derivative motives. Mission is an inner necessity for the faithful and for the church. And if we refuse it, we not merely omit a duty, but we deny our very selves. And that's our show for tonight. Remember to like us on Facebook at facebook.com/ancientfaithtoday. Share out our program after that's posted. Give us your feedback and contact us with any ideas or topics that you might want to hear about. Join us next Tuesday evening as we speak to a lay sister who participates in the amazing work at the incredible St. Elizabeth Monastery in Belarus, serving the outcasts of Belarusian society. Good night, everybody.
Christ is in our midst. He is and ever